It's Matt Williams from Brand Federation here with one of our Brand Federation cold takes, which is a short take on some of the news of the day in the marketing world. And on this cold take, we want to follow up on a couple of brands that made it onto our Santa's watching list. If you saw our last version of Beer and Brands, you saw me and Kelly O'Keefe talk about our naughty and nice list. We went through a list of brands that have been naughty in the past year and brands that have been nice. But we added a third list, which was a Santa's watching list. And we talked about some of the brands that Santa's watching in 2024. Well, lo and behold, we're sitting here less than 2 weeks into the new year, and Santa has some new news about a couple of those brands, specifically Apple and OpenAI. Those were both brands that ended up on Santa's watch list. And we've got some things to talk about. So let's start with Apple. It's been interesting over the last couple of years that Apple, despite its history of groundbreaking, magical technology, seems to have lost the thread in terms of big, groundbreaking innovations. You haven't seen the kind of products that you would stand in line overnight at the Apple store to get your hands on, the ones that changed the way you thought about how technology fit into your life, the way the iPhone did or the original Mac did. And now we are hearing news that Barclays, among other investment houses, have downgraded Apple stock. Well, why, you might ask? Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, iPhone 15 demand is down because it didn't pop, according to Barclays, in September when it was introduced. Well, it didn't pop because if you go to the Apple website, and we've done this, and you compare the iPhone 15, iPhone 14, and iPhone 13 side by side, they're almost identical. There are small little incremental tweaks from model to model, but it's proof positive of the concern that we had when we said Santa was watching. And that is that Apple's not coming out with anything new. They're taking the thing they've got, they're doing some incremental tweaks and technology inside the phone, but there's nothing groundbreaking here, and it's starting to affect their performance. The other thing we're seeing in the same theme with Apple is what Barclays called a lack of bounce back in Macs, iPads, and wearables, despite the introduction of M3 processors in the latest round of Macs. Well, this is exactly what Steve Jobs said he wouldn't do in his famous introduction of the Think Different campaign. You might remember that video. If you haven't seen it, go to YouTube and check it out. It's an amazing articulation of the power of brand communication. And Jobs specifically says, Apple's not in the business of fighting with other computer companies about processor speeds and bits and bytes. We're not about that. We're about changing the way people interact in the world and helping them do things they didn't think were possible. Well, guess what? Now they're being downgraded because the M3 processor introduction didn't spike their demand. Well, that's what Steve Jobs is sitting somewhere saying, I told you so. So interesting brand to watch. And it looks like some of the things we were concerned about in the Naughty and Nice broadcast related to Apple might be starting to happen. The second brand that Santa was watching at the end of last year was OpenAI. And you remember all the drama around Sam Altman and his departure and reinstallation as the CEO of OpenAI. We wanted to watch that, but we also want to watch the evolution of generative AI technology in general, because it's going to be very interesting how that plays out. At least Santa thought so at the end of last year. Well, it turns out Santa was right. New York Times sued OpenAI for copyright infringement and accused them of using New York Times content to train their generative AI technology. Of course, OpenAI has come back in response to that lawsuit saying that it's without merit. But what we believe, and Santa believes, is that it's the first shot in what will become an ongoing war that will be fascinating to watch between people creating and training generative AI technology and content creators who are making the content that those technologists are using to train AI. So it's not just journalism content. It's going to be artistic content. It's going to be literature. It's going to be the written word. It's going to be anybody who is in the business of content creation is going to have to watch very carefully about how their content is being used to train AI to essentially cut them out of the process. So this is going to go back to a bigger battle that's going to continue to be fought between intellectual property owners, generative AI, and the people who train it. So it's going to be very interesting to watch how this plays out. So we think Santa was pretty prescient in his decisions to watch some of these brands. He's taken a look at Apple. He's taken a look at OpenAI. We're going to keep our eyes on some of those other brands that Santa wanted to watch. We hope you will continue to watch these cold takes because we love bringing them to you. And thanks for tuning in. We will see you soon. I'm Matt Williams from Brand Federation. Thanks for being here.